Hey guys, it's your boy Knicks Banks coming back at it again this week with another video. This time we're talking about our 108-94 loss to the Jazz. And we're going to be talking about Mitchell Robinson being apparently frustrated with who or what, we're not quite sure. But let's dive into it. Bless up. So this loss reminded us of a couple things for sure, right? So we are reminded that Elfrid Payton can't shoot. We're reminded that Alec Burks is a role player, not a star. We're reminded that RJ Barrett is going to do what RJ Barrett does. Julius Randle is going to do what Julius Randle does. Mitchell Robinson, he'll play hard, but big, strong guys tend to take advantage of him. And we were reminded that Quickly is a rookie. So I don't take any one of those statements lightly. If you look at the stats, right? You look at this team's stats, and we had 15 assists this game. That's uncharacteristic of a Tom Thibodeau offense. Generally speaking, when a guy is dominant on ball, he wants to see that guy generating good plays for other people around him. Now, this was kind of an outlier of a game because we saw freaking Austin Rivers turn to Michael Jordan, yesterday. I mean, the man was lights out. He was killing the game. But I say that to say we needed to pass that ball, and all of this comes together to remind us that that ball needs to move. If that ball's not moving, we are not a team that can be competitive in reality. We rode a hot hand. I mean, it looked like Austin Rivers was going to have like a ridiculous night, and I mean, he did have a ridiculous first half, but he went cold that second half. But regardless of whether or not Austin Rivers was having a hot night, that ball still needs to move around, especially once he gets cold. You cannot allow these guys to play ISO ball, because we don't have a guy that's going to take that ball and going to go get buckets. And even if we did, we know that's not effective, a la, the Melo era. You know what I mean? You cannot expect guys to play ISO ball and win games, right? Even the elite, right? We've seen Kevin Durant, James Harden, whatever great scorer it is that you want to talk about. We've seen them put up great numbers, but in the long run, just having a guy play ISO ball is not good basketball, and it's not a good way to win, especially when in reality, we don't have that kind of guy. I mean, as Julius Randle is basically unguardable. I was hard on him in the past because I recognized the fact that this man is too strong for most guys to guard, and the guys that he's not necessarily stronger than, he's normally quicker than. So just based off of physical attributes, Julius Randle is basically impossible to guard. That does not mean that on every single play he's capable of going out there and scoring. He's not meant to do that, and neither is RJ, or at least not at this point in his career. And one of the good takeaways from this game was we saw that when Austin Rivers was taking over the game, we saw RJ kind of set guys up. He had, I believe, like 11 points or 7 points in that first half, but he had 4 assists. So he was making sure he moved that ball and got guys involved, but he recognized the fact that this wasn't his time, right? But that's a catch-22, because come that second half, RJ should have been getting fed. RJ should have been eating. I mean, he was efficient. He had 17 points. He shot 7 for 11, 3 out of 3 from the 3-point line. And RJ, this whole little Western trip, has shot like 70% from 3. Okay, that's an anomaly. We know he's not going to keep that up. We know nobody in the NBA can keep that up. But that just goes to say, like, hey, this guy, he may not be, flashy, dropping buckets on guys' heads, this game, but he's efficient getting his points. Start feeding him. Start looking to feed him. And RJ should have been looking to take over a little bit, but I understand that he's also learning to be more patient and not force things, because we see when he forces the game, bad things happen. You know what I mean? When he forces that game, he's inefficient. But when he lets that game come to him, he's highly efficient. Like I said, he had almost 20 points. So 17 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, shooting almost 70% from the field, over 100% from the 3-point line. He had a steal. But this is not just about RJ. This also goes about the whole team. They should have been looking to move that ball. And I understand, this brings up another question, which is, I understand why Quickly comes off the bench. I understand that that's a young second unit. They're coming out hot, playing hard, and it looks good, right? You don't want to mess with what's working, and you still want to build them up, because you have nights where Quickly reminds us that he's a rookie. But if we're talking about winning games, like actually winning games and putting ourselves in position to win games, Quickly has to start. We're looking at a starting lineup of Elfrid Payton. Today was Alec Burks, but I'm going to assume when Bullock comes back, he ends up back in the starting lineup with RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and Mitchell Robinson. 3 through 5 may hit a 3. They may get hot from 3. They may never shoot a 3. But that's not their game. Like, they're not perimeter-based guys. They're not guys that you're necessarily going to leave wide open. But they're not guys that the defense is scared of from out there. They know that these guys get their money in the paint. Reggie Bullock has been trash. No offense to Reggie. Much respect to him. What he's gone through, what he stands for. But this season, he's been terrible. That 3-point shot is not falling for him. And his defense hasn't necessarily been all that to make up for the fact that guys aren't worried about him. Guys just aren't worried about him. Defenders are not worried about this guy. They're not like, oh, he's a knockdown shooter this season. I got to be worried about him. You take your chances with him, because he's not been that good. And Elfrid Payton, much respect to him, but leaving him in that starting lineup is leaving him in a position to fail. That starting lineup does not need more playmaking, because Julius Randle gives you 6-7 assists a game. RJ Barrett can handle playmaking load. If you move Burks into the starting lineup, he can play make a bit. But, Bullock can pass the ball at least. I mean, he's not a playmaker, but he can pass the ball. We really need ball movement, player movement, and spacing, right? Again, your 2 top guys eat in the paint, meaning they need space. Not to mention they're both left-handed and like to take up that same left side of the court. So if they are both trying to take up that same left side of the court, but they're willing to spread it out to be able to take turns, that at the very least, the other guys around them need to be able to space that floor out a little bit, because these defenders are playing zone on us. And we've seen these guys get a little bit smarter. Our guys are, getting a little bit smarter, playing better defense, beating the zone. But, this is just a team that has to figure out what their offense is, because you cannot rely on Austin Rivers to have this crazy first half. That second half, you have to make an adjustment. He's not knocking it down. That's fine. He may get hot again later. But for right now, instead of trying to, fumble around and hope that someone gets the game going, you need to have your offensive core principles and stick to them. You know what I mean? Move the ball, pass that ball, or slash, pass, move, repeat. Get the defense moving, because all it takes is a defender to make the mistake. And, these guys are NBA players. You can take advantage. They're smart enough to be able to take advantage of, of a defensive player that's making a mistake. That's why I want to see Elfrid Payton taking out that starting lineup. I want to see Quickley in that starting lineup, right? And I mentioned Quickley looking like a rookie, because he is a rookie. He shot 0 for 4 from the 3-point line, 1 for 11 from the field, but he's still a threat, and teams are still going to treat him as a threat. And Mitchell Robinson, he went on Instagram and he mentioned, when are they going to let me play? Now, obviously, that's not in regards to his minutes. He's playing damn near 30 minutes a game. It may be in terms of seeing a facet of his game be like incorporated. And I don't blame him, man. Guys, we're treating him like he's useless offensively, when in reality, he is, at least based off points per possession, on the pick and roll, one of the most dangerous offensive assets that there is in the league. One of the most efficient scorers in the league. Out of any move, any play that anybody runs in the league, that Mitchell Robinson pick and roll is one of the most dangerous ones in the league. The only guys that were looking for it in the past were Frank Ntilikina. RJ Barrett looked for it when RJ Barrett is playmaking. That's about it. Because Elfrid Payton, I don't see Elfrid. Oh, and Quickly looks for him, but I don't see Elfrid looking for him that much in that sense. We see it sometimes, but I don't feel like Elfrid Payton is really taking advantage of that. So I could understand why he'd complain about that, but not necessarily on social media. That's not the proper place to vent those kinds of frustrations, because you're always under the public eye. Now, it's also possible that maybe he's talking about, the refs. It's possible that he's talking about the refs. If we think about it, though, it being the refs kind of doesn't make sense, because he only had 2 fouls, which is not a lot for him. And I don't really see that being the cause of his frustration, but it could very well be. We'll see. Time will tell. I just hope to see, proper ball movement reintroduced back in this team, because we lack proper ball movement. We need it. These young guys, they're not going to be able to flourish without proper ball movement. And I know that Tibbs likes to run, not necessarily ball movement heavy, but an offense that relies on a lot of facilitating. And instead of 15 assists, we need to be on a nightly basis in the mid-20s, if not higher. That's just the kind of team we have to be. All right, guys, let me know your opinions. Tell me what you think about what I had to say. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Bless up.